morning, everybody. Hi, everyone. Hello from Arizona. So nice to see people. Just gonna call out my friends Kathleen and Jean and who is up here? Bill. Everybody's letting me see their faces. Thank you. Hi, guys. Good morning. Oh, it's not morning for you. It's morning for me.
Yeah.
It is not morning for you. Good afternoon, friends. Everybody's coming in and getting connected in more ways than one. I gotta say that your still pictures are really nice too. It's just nice to see people's faces and see realtors. Been missing you guys. We're still letting people in from the waiting room, Miss Linda.
I am. Yes, I am.
Girls are all over it, taking care of you as they do.
Yes, actually, our president just joined, Mary Kutu.
Welcome. Typically, I stand for the president, but I have pajama pants on, so I'm not going to do that right now. Mary, I know firsthand, and I know not a whole lot of people do, just how much work and time you spend away from your family and away from your work to work for all of us. So thank you very much, President Mary.
Of course, everyone's muted.
I know. Good people. So pro tip, guys, I want to give you 2 pro tips right now for the people that are here quick and right on time. If you hover over your name and click on it, you can rename yourself. Anything you want. Keep it clean. I'm changing my name right now to Paula PJ Pants Monthofer. But, you know, you might, for example, if you're on with other colleagues across the country, you might want to put where you're from or your title, you know, Bill Fain, Realtor, to let people know. So just so you know, a little pro tip for you, you can change your name on any Zoom meeting and add in information or add something that might make people smile and remember you a little bit more.
Ah, got it. Thank you. Love it.
Yeah, the better call Paul. I love it. That's awesome.
Isn't that great, Paula? I love his little tagline.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I do. Okay, second pro tip that I have for all of you is if you are muted and you want to stay muted because there's ambient noise, but you do want to speak up at some point because I want to hear from you, you can just press your space bar and unmute yourself for the time that you're speaking and then lift up off the space bar again. So 2 pro tips for you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I'm trying to make you bigger. I'm seeing you just in the corner of my screen, the left corner.
You don't need me bigger, Lisa. It's okay.
I do.
It's you know what? It's because we're going to be sharing the screen, so the picture of me or whoever is speaking is going to be smaller
Okay.
with the slides there. So that is not a user error on your part. But trust me, I'm at just the right proportion.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It's hard when you don't move at all and you lose something.
Right.
My pen just got lost. All right, I'm back. Whenever you think that we've garnered enough people, Miss Linda, I'll leave it to you.
So, you know, I think it is a 12:03, so I think it's fair to get started. So good afternoon and welcome everyone. I'd like to thank our very generous sponsors today, Centerville Bank, Equity Title, Harbor One Mortgage, Ocean State Credit Union, Shamrock Home Loans, Pawtucket Credit Union, and Lynch's Cleaning and Restoration Services. Please, everybody, use them. They are our sponsors and they're our affiliate members. So today I am very excited to introduce our guest speaker, Paula Monthofer. Paula, I have to tell you, I've been saying Monthofer. So
Monthofer.
Monthofer is an enthusiastic realtor and a nationally recognized speaker. Paula is the broker owner of Realty One Group, Mountain Desert in Flagstaff, Arizona. She has served as president at her local and state associations and serves on the NAR Board of Directors since 2014. With great pleasure, please welcome Paula.
Thank you,
Take
Miss
it
Linda.
away.
Linda and Carol have been absolutely amazing. I'm sure I'm not telling you anything that you don't already know, but they do so very much work that none of you ever see, that people like myself get to interact with them and work and see. And the passion and care that they have in putting together educational pieces like this today is outstanding. They are such a pleasure to work with. And I just want to share all of that with you because that's not typically how you're working with them. And I wanted to let you know some things that you don't see that I get to see. Thank you so much, Linda.
Thank you, Paula.
You're so welcome. I also want to just talk about the sponsors real quick. You know, we love our sponsors. We all know we can't do our day-to-day business without the help of many affiliates doing their jobs well, right? We also can't put on educational events like this without the help of sponsors. So these are people who are not only helping you to serve your clients, but are helping the association to better serve its members. So as Linda already said, when you can, if you are in need of a vendor services, please look to them and check them out because they are supporting you. They are supporting all of us. I am so excited that I get to be here with you today and share all of this with you today and have this exact conversation. Really excited because here's the thing. Every single one of you that is in this call right now chose to be here. You have self-selected to take time to learn better, to learn how to be better, do better, treat your clients better. And it's not for CE and it's not for credit. It's truly just because you have decided to take this time and use it to better yourselves. And I love teaching to people like that you're not here for the credit, you're here for what you can learn and how you can better yourself. So I just want to honor that right at the front and thank all of you for taking the time to be here to do just that. This is a warning I should have started giving about a decade ago. I've been teaching fair housing classes for a while now, and people have feelings about things. Discomfort does not make people happy, generally. Warnings, you're about to take a fair housing class. This has been known to can cause conditions such as discomfort, feelings of surprise, outrage, anger, guilt. This can cause introspection. It might maybe have you take a look at your own self and your actions and see how you can improve. We can all improve. We all have space for improvement. And then finally, all of this together can quite possibly lead to change behavior or change in thought. And here's the thing, that's good for us too. It's good to grow. It's good to learn more. It's not easy. Some days I'll say, you know, dear universe, dear God, please don't make me have to learn anything new today. Learning is hard. Just let me be ignorant for today. And I understand that because learning is uncomfortable. And you have all chosen to be here to talk about topics that are typically avoided because they can be so uncomfortable. And I am grateful to all of you for taking that step and showing up today to have this discussion, to talk about these things. So I mentioned that I've been teaching fair housing for more than a decade now. I have been brushing up against the issues that I mentioned in this warning the entire time that I've been speaking about fair housing. What I didn't realize is how common of a phenomenon that is. So the first thing that I want to offer to all of you is to write down the name of this book, White Fragility. And I'd love to hear, just press the space bar and unmute yourselves. Has anyone read this book or is anyone reading this book right now?
No.
No.
White fragility?
Right? Right?
Fragility, white fragility. And thank you for asking.
And yes.
Yes. And what was your take on it? Was that Carol that's read it?
Yeah, that's
No, I have not read it.
somebody else can talk.
Okay. I don't think the other person had read it. That's okay. It's a really great book. If you've not had a chance to read it, I cannot recommend it enough. And what it speaks to is exactly some of the things that I'm talking about in this warning here. It speaks to the discomfort that people have in speaking about race relations at all. It speaks to how people will be surprised and angry at what they're finding out and then try to find ways to discount that because it's angering and surprising to them. It's a really great book that kind of pulls apart how we look at things. What's interesting is that one of the best things the book talks about is the dichotomy, the binary way that we like to see things. People are either a good person or they're a racist. When the truth is that there is not one person on the planet that does not have biases within themselves. It's how our brains are wired. The way that our mental functions work in psychobiology is we are given bits of information and then we fill in the blanks between them. That's how our brains work. They look for shortcuts, and typically that's been there to help us with survival, but it trips us up when we don't recognize that this is how our brain works and we need to fight against biases. Instead of looking at it as I'm either a good person or I'm a racist, which leaves no room for grace, zero room for improvement. No one wants to proclaim themselves a bad person. Instead of that, what is more graceful and what is more honest is admitting the fact that there is not one person on the planet who does not have biases. We all do, all different ways. It's just how we perceive things because of the culture we were steeped within. It's how we relate to people. It's how our brains shortcut someone that looked like that before that you had an encounter with, whatever that encounter was. So if we can, right up front, right now, all just have an understanding, an acknowledgement, and an admission of the fact that we all have biases, that alone would be a great step forward for each and every one of us. I'd like to hear from people. Unclick your mute, hit the space bar to unmute and tell me, is there anyone that has not heard about this Newsday article that was published about Long Island? Has anyone not heard about this? Okay, not. You have not. Okay, and thank you for admitting that. It's not easy to admit things you don't know, and I appreciate that. I want you guys to write this down. Long Island divided. Write that down for yourselves. You need, as realtors, to take the time to look through this report. And if you've looked at it tangentially but not really dove into it, it is worth your time to dive into this report and take a really hard look at it. It's going to take some time because there is so very much there. For 3 years, Newsday did an undercover investigative report on realtors in Long Island. And what they found was that in 49% of the time, Black people were given disparate treatment. In 39% of the instances, Hispanic people were given disparate treatment. And in 19% of the instances, Asians were given disparate treatment. Some of the comments that were collected are shown on the screen. And what's interesting is that when, for example, Rosemary was asked, why did you tell the white couple to follow the school bus, but not the Black couple to follow the school bus? The mental gymnastics that were performed to be able to make that justification were very interesting. They have videotape of all of the conversations that they had, and there are ethics hearings, and the state attorney general of New York is looking into this. What I think is important about this to note is not, oh my goodness, those realtors in Long Island are so horrible. But to understand that this study could have been done in any major city across the United States. Now, I am a dork about history and forms and all kinds of weird, dorky, geeky things. So I actually looked back because I wanted to see the history of when Long Island became divided and how the division started. And I looked back to when they first built the Brooklyn Bridge and people started really founding communities on Long Island. And what was very interesting to me to find out is that Long Island was divided in its inception. At that time, there were dividing lines among different ethnicities that were all Eastern European ethnicities. However, they had very clear dividing lines at that time as well. Does anybody have a comment about this? Okay. This one was done in Boston just this year. And this study, as opposed to the one in Long Island, which was a newspaper's expose and research, this was done by Suffolk University as a research report. And what they studied, as opposed to people looking for homes, they were studying how renters are treated. And you can see the title of it there, Qualified Renters Need Not Apply. What they found was, in their summary, they actually referenced the Long Island expose and said that they found statistics very similar to the ones reflected by Newsday's report. And the last piece that I wanted to share with you today is this article that was posted this year by Realtor.com. And I want to hear from you. I want to know what's the message that they're sending with this headline and with that photo. And I'd like to hear from someone, please. And if someone is brave enough to speak right now, I have prizes that I can use to bribe you.
Well, you've got a black man in the ad.
What's that saying?
That's saying don't live here.
Right? Because they've got the black man behind the white people like that? And with the scary, is that what you're referring to, Paul?
That's exactly what I'm referring to.
Right? Paul, what do you, so they're saying scary, and they've got a picture of black people behind the royal couple, right? That's what you're seeing, Paul?
Initially, yes, that's exactly what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
The connotation would be that African Americans or black people are scary, and why would you want to live here?
Yes, absolutely. I agree. Nail to the head, 100%. That's the message. Say that again, please. I'm sorry
Goes into your head before you even know.
Thank you. I apologize. It was cutting out a little bit, but what Paul said was this impression and this image goes in your head before you can even consciously think about it. That's really, thank you for saying that. Does anybody have any idea what Harry and Meghan were actually afraid of with the home they were purchasing? Because it had nothing to do with black people, by the way. Anybody know what they were actually scared of? What this article was actually about? Anybody? No. Hearing none. What they were actually concerned about in their home purchase was natural disasters.
Should have figured as much with the red faces.
With the red faces. So it's interesting you mentioned that too, because so I had members contact me because this was put out by Realtor.com. They contacted myself and many other people. We reached out to Realtor.com to speak with them about this. And doing research about this, we found out that they had taken a Getty image. And then, as you just mentioned, they made them the royal couple. They put them in color and put kind of a green halo around them and put the rest of the photo in black and white. They altered the photo to make it look even more contrasting and alarming. What they were trying to message with this has nothing to do with the article and the message of the article. Now, my question to all of you is, the public is seeing this. They're seeing the Long Island study in Newsday that was splashed all over nationwide. They're seeing the report that just came out of Boston. They're seeing articles like this that our industry is putting forward. What is the message that we are sending to Black communities? And I really want to hear from you on this. What is the message that we are sending? And Paul, you got a book because you spoke up. I'm writing that down. Thank you, friend. Who's going to be brave like Paul and talk to me? I'm not that scary.
Hi, it's Pat.
Hey, Pat. Pat gets a book.
Sorry, I'm late joining. But I think what it says is that, you know, that's the way our industry looks at the population, and that people of color are going to be at a disadvantage in the whole housing search and acquisition.
I would agree 100%. I don't know how we can take all of these images and messages, and again, I'm just pointing out 3 of them, and not understand collectively what kind of messaging we are sending out there. So whenever I teach fair housing classes, what I hear most often is, well, that's never happened to me. That's never happened to me. That story where you're talking about the person, I've never had that experience. And I'm going to get really real with you guys for a second. Our industry is upwards of 90% white. So predominantly when I'm speaking to classes, the majority of the people in the classrooms are white people, and it hasn't happened to them. And when you have not had that experience yourself, how do you find out about it? How do you know that it's happening when it's not happening to you? So recently, NAR, in looking at their code of ethics and our standards, and seeing that there was perhaps not enough teeth in regards to our members making comments on social media which violate our code of ethics, they're taking a hard look at that. But what they did in preparation for that decision, before they dove into what they could do and how they should do it, is they sat and they listened. Matt DeFanis held a panel where he had members of color from all across the United States share their experiences with the deciding body so that they could understand firsthand the stories that are happening. And people were crying. People were completely in shock, completely taken aback by the fact that Joanne Poole, for example, past president of Women's Council of Realtors, one of the finest, most professional people I know, was told that she could not enter a home when she went to show it, that her client could come in, but that she would have to wait outside because she was not the right color. And story after story after story. But how do we find out about these things if they're not happening to us? And I think this is important, because when we don't have the experience, then we have trouble understanding it. And that's understandable. But knowing that there are experiences that are taking place that we don't know about, how can we find out about them? Matt held a panel and had people talking. What are some of your ideas of how we can find out? And I have my own, I'll share if you don't, but tell me right now, what are some ways? You're all here today. You're taking the time right now to learn more. That counts. That's absolutely one of them. Taking classes. What else can we be doing to learn more about people whose experiences are different than ours? Let me hear from you, please.
Hi, this is Pam.
Hey,
And
Pam.
hi. I think more a question is how to make it real. So hearing about, we can talk about experiences, but how do we make it real for ourselves and our colleagues, so that it's not just something sad that happened to somebody else, or horrifying that something unbelievable that happened to someone else, that we feel it ourselves and are able to make an impact in our business.
And what would you suggest for that, Pam?
Well, I'm asking you. I mean, I think that's something that everyone here that's here struggles with, right? We're here because we want to listen to you, to hear what you have to say, to make how we can make it real for ourselves and our colleagues.
Well, my thought with this section was to have you guys think about it and give me some suggestions on it. And then I would tell you mine, but I'll tell you mine.
Well, so I think that this forum itself is a great first start.
I agree. I really do, Pam, because of exactly that. We shy away from the difficult, from the uncomfortable, right, Pam? So even just being here today and having this discussion is a step in the right direction. I really, truly, fervently believe in discussions, in talking to people, in coming from curiosity instead of judgment. And there's a big difference there. If you're going to sit down to actually engage and make it real, I'm doing air quotes because it's what you said, not because I don't believe it to be true, and make it real, the way to do that is to sit down with a real human and talk with them.
Listen.
And when you do that, understand that it is not their job to teach you, but if you come from curiosity instead of judgment and say, I would like to learn more, would you be willing to have a conversation with me and gain permission? And
well,
then
I think that's a great way that you to talk to anyone is to I teach and I express to my students, be curious, right? Be curious about it. Don't just blow it off. Be curious. Find wonder in it. Be surprised. Find it curious. Right. I'm not the only person that said that. That's gone way, way back. But I think you're really hitting on something, is to tackle that curiosity.
Because it's without intention, often our words come with judgment. And so being intentional about having our words come from curiosity instead. And there is an art to that. We can't help but react when we hear things that are different than the way we would do them. And I think that understanding that about yourself and having some grace and understanding that you can come back from that with, tell me more. Help me understand. That's enough. That's enough to have that be a space where people can come in whatever shape they're in and fit in and share. I think that in addition to, I think that meeting with somebody face to face is probably going to be the way to make it anything the most real for you, anything at all. There are a lot of people that are putting out great information about this right now. One of the things that I'm doing is I'm having conversations with my friends of every different background and experience. Tomorrow I'm going to be interviewing a United States Congresswoman. The idea of it is to stop looking at people as the monoliths or the labels and just understand that everybody has different experiences and that we can grow ourselves when we learn and have a space to hear about other people's experiences without judgment. That without judgment part's really important. Thank you, Pam, for speaking to all of that. I really appreciate that. There's a steep learning curve that's taking place right now. One of the things that's very different between this movement and movements in the past is that I don't remember from my studies of civil rights history in the past any time where a majority of books on Black race and relationships with race had been completely sold out of bookstores. But if you wanted to get that book, White Fragility, that I mentioned, you'd probably have to back order it if you're not buying a digital copy right now. There is a huge learning curve that people have put themselves on this year. I'm someone who's been studying fair housing and race relations for more than a decade. And what I learned this year is how much more I have to learn. And I just keep learning. There's great movies that are out there that you should be watching and tuning into. There's great books. All of that makes it real. But I think what makes it the most real, and what Pam was speaking to, is when you can actually have a conversation face to face with somebody. Because when that happens, and I don't care how different than you they are, the biggest dividing line right now seems to be politically, right? We all think that everyone's so different. We're not really that different. But even if it's somebody that's completely politically opposed to what you believe, if you sat down with that human and had a conversation with them, you could not help but be smacked in the face by their humanity and see it in yourself as well. There's a lot more that we agree on than we disagree on. It just seems like we're focusing on what we disagree on right now. Now, if that has not ever happened to you, can we talk for a minute about why not? If you haven't had these experiences that we've been talking about, why not? Somebody speak it. Why?
97 or some odd % white in our business, and if we are in communities where we don't have a large mixed population, then we just don't experience it on a day-to-day basis, and so it doesn't exist for us. It's
Well said, Patricia, and thank you for speaking to that. Another way of saying that is that we have a privileged experience because we have not had to experience that. And I know that when words like white privileged are used, that it rankles people. I understand that because people say, well, my experience has been very tough. I have worked hard. My parents have emigrated. I have heard many pushbacks to that. However, the privilege that allows us to, in huge numbers, say, that's never happened to me. I've never had that experience. That is the white privilege that people are referring to when they speak about white privilege. It's the privilege to have never had experiences like that. For those of you that have children, it's the privilege to not have to have additional conversations with those children about how they need to be acting and being more submissive so that they are not getting into trouble that they did not ever ask for. Did somebody have a comment? No? Okay. And then the next step after that is what if it has happened to you? Is there someone with us today who has had an experience where they were treated differently because of their race?
If I can speak quickly to that, and I'll speak strictly for myself, but it may be for other members, is although we may have been privileged and it hasn't happened to me per se, it has happened to clients and experiences of mine. And I think as an organization, if we could share that, then you would know it's not just it is in our backyard. Those of us who've handled tenants or homeowners that pull us aside and whisper in our ears what they want, or more importantly, what they don't want. Although it's not affecting me, white privileges, I have to walk away saying, wow, it still exists out there.
I mean, I love everything that you're saying right now. And
I think up to now,
to that.
We really haven't had a forum to talk about it. Or you just don't talk about it for whatever reason. Being uncomfortable, or you don't want to put that badge on being a realtor. So although we live in perhaps our more isolated worlds, it still affects our business with our clients and our customers.
Well said. Absolutely. Well said. It does affect your client. It does affect your business. And it still matters, right? Because even if it hasn't happened to you, it still matters to you. Whether it happened to your clients or not, it would still matter to you, is what I hear from the words that you're saying too. And I love that you're saying that, we haven't had a forum, we haven't talked about it. And I just really just want to commend your association again for having this forum and talking about it. And to your next point, which was, we have had people come up and whisper these things in our ears. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's talk about it when the buyer does it. And the buyer asks you to be sure that they're only going to they want to avoid certain neighborhoods. I want to hear from someone, what do you say back when they say that to you?
May I jump in just a quick second here?
Yeah.
And push back a second as well. I just went under contract with a home in a particular area here in Rhode Island, and I had got a call from a neighbor, and they wanted to know what skin color. This is a true story. I couldn't believe it. What skin color the buyer was. And that's not even a conversation I know that we're supposed to even elaborate on. But my response to them certainly, well, it was, it doesn't matter and it shouldn't matter. Aside from that, separately, I mean, I get heated when it comes to this stuff because I think to myself, there are men and women who are of mixed races and color, skin, doesn't matter, and they can go to war and put their lives on a line for us, and you care about who your neighbor is, that person, whoever is going to purchase that home, will probably pay their mortgage and do a better job at keeping their property kept than you have in the past 20 years. But I'm just saying, it's very real. It really does happen. And again, I was very surprised that somebody would actually put a call in and want to find that out.
I wish I could say that I was surprised, but I hear this so often from our colleagues around the country. And thank you for speaking to it, and thank you for saying that this is real and this is happening. I think that we need to acknowledge that it's real and it's happening. And then the next thing we need to do is arm our members with the words and phrases that they can use so that they understand how to handle these situations. And I like your pushback of why. There's no reason that you need to know that. There's more than one way that we can deal with any situation. And you get to pick which one's going to work best in which scenario. Yes.
I had a listing last year, and the seller said to me, I'll make sure that you don't put any Asians in this home.
Mm-hmm. That was my next one. Mm-hmm.
You're
What did you say,
correct.
Paul?
I said, well, two things. I'm going to put a qualified person in the home. And two, if you insist on me not putting an Asian in the home as a buyer, then I'm not your realtor.
How did they handle that? Because here's what I think. I think that most of us, we don't like conflict. We like getting along with people, right? And when we have to conflict with people, there's a fear of what the reaction is going to be. So just tell us, Paul, what was their reaction?
They moved off of it. They moved off of it. And you want to hear something funny? You want to hear something funny?
Always.
The house sold to Asians.
That's great.
Does that make everybody else as happy as it made me?
No, and
it does, actually.
And here was the deal. The house sold for way over asking. My sellers were thrilled. The buyers were thrilled. And everybody was happy at the end of the day. And nothing else mattered. They were qualified. It went through. It appraised. The bank lended the money. It all worked. I mean, but it was a conversation in the very beginning. I'll never forget it. It was the first time I heard it so blatantly.
Wow.
And I just said, well, no, it's going to be qualified. And if you insist on me following that rule, then I'm going to give you the listing back because I'm not your realtor then.
I thank you so much for sharing that whole story with us. And I'll tell you that I found that to be the case many times as well, where I push back and I say, no, or you can work with somebody else. You can find someone else.
I mean, I'm still pretty new in this, and it's not worth my license, number one. Number two, I wouldn't do it anyway, but even if
right.
I would, it's not worth my license. So,
Yeah. But what I think is interesting is that in your experience and in the majority of my experiences is just that pushback is enough to make it go away.
I had an experience quite a few years ago where I had 7 listings from the same seller. It was an estate. So she was the executrix. And one of the properties was a 2-family. I had a showing. I hadn't met the buyers. This is back in the days where we were sub-agents and whatnot.
Oh, wow.
Shows you how old I am. But anyways, this couple pulled up and they were, I'll just say they were green. And the seller would never give me a key to show the property. She always insisted on being there. So the house, was the furthest distance. She was in the middle. Then there was myself, and then this family that pulled up. And I could see she had smoke coming out of her ears. The seller did when she saw, you know, this family pull up. And I was like, oh God, this is not going to be good. So anyway, I just concentrated on the buyers. They had two little children. So I grabbed each of their hands, directed them towards the house. I didn't shove the seller, although I wanted to. I just kind of brushed past her, like, you're not going to stop me from showing this house. Went through the showing. She was outside. You could feel like she was ready to rip me a new one. After the buyers left, consequently she did, but I was, by that time, you know, my office, you know, because we didn't have cell phones and stuff. Again, I'm showing my age, but I had my forms cabinet in the trunk of my car, and I pulled out 7 withdrawal forms. I had 7 listings from this woman. Pulled out all 7, and she's ranting at me. Like, I can't even begin to tell you what she was saying. And I'm just, you know, pretty much ignoring her, filling out the withdrawal forms. And she goes, what are you doing? And I'm like, I'm withdrawing all the properties. I'm not doing this. So she said, you can't do that. Oh, yes, I can. And we had this conversation. So she said, well, I'm going to call my attorney. And I said, you do that. And I said, you tell your attorney the reason why, that I'm no longer your realtor. I'm signing the withdrawals right now. She goes, well, I'm not signing them. Feel free, don't to. And I knew the attorney, the estate attorney. And I said, when I'm leaving here, I'm going over to his office. And if you won't sign them, then I'll find out if he can and will. But I'm done. And the repercussions of that is, you know, before cell phones and that, she had my home phone for 2 straight days. She blew up my phone, threatened me with all kinds of things, but that's probably one of the worst experiences I've had in 30 years in this industry. But I will say, on the other side, I've been in situations too where I've been the oddball in a group environment, and I have been badly treated too. So, like everything else, I think that at some point we've got to come to some semblance of balance.
Oh, I like
Because it
that.
exists.
I love
It's
every
not
bit of what you
one
shared. So, I'm sorry. Say the last part again. I apologize.
I think it to some degree, it's in everyone's psyche. We have biases that we're not aware of, and it's across the board. And I think
agree.
everyone should look in the mirror and kind of rethink positions, and hopefully move forward.
Oh, so well said. I wish I'm so glad they're recording this. I was about to say, I wish that we could get this recorded, but your association's so smart because they are recording this. Everything you shared was so excellent. I just want to take a couple pieces out of there. You kept making fun of yourself and saying that you were dating yourself, but what I was hearing was my strong realtor trademark name, which I uphold and love, was being upheld and loved and shown with honor by you and before cell phones. So that's what I heard when you were saying about how long ago it was. And when you were talking about writing out the withdrawals for 7 listings and that being one of the worst experiences, yes, that has got to be one of the worst experiences for you. But it is one of the best examples of a realtor honor, integrity, and truly living to what the code reads that I have heard.
It's painful. If I can just add, you know, another element to it, it was painful because that month I happened to win Listing Agent of the Month.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, in Newport, we used to do conventions on Goat Island, and that was the place to be every year. So this was an overnight for the convention, all fees paid and everything. And all I kept thinking was, you know, I'm going to have to give that prize back to my broker because I had the 7 listings, I won the competition, and like 2 weeks later, it was like I had all these withdrawals. So
you should get it. You should win another competition. You should win the integrity competition then.
Actually, and I think you should
so much more.
You should win the Listing Agent of the Year for that one.
Oh my God in heaven. Yeah. Thank you.
No, see, your colleagues see you. We see you. We see you exactly. I thank you for sharing these stories. People like to box up race issues as something that happened in the past and, oh, isn't history awful? And I think we've all been really clear with what we've all shared today, that this is a present day issue. That as realtors, we are the ones on the front lines, getting the whispers in the ears, sometimes shoving past the sellers with the green people to go inside. We're the people that are on the front lines of this. And we get to choose how we are opening doors for people. And make no mistake about it, that is our job. We are the ambassadors of the American dream, and our job is to open doors for people. Wealth is held in real estate and transferred through families. It helps families for generations. And when we stilt that, when we are stopping that, we are not just hurting that family that's in front of us, we are hurting generations of that family going forward and stilting them from going forward. This is such good discussion. I really appreciate all of you getting into this with me. These next scenarios are ones that I would imagine that maybe you have not run into, but many of our colleagues have shared with me these situations that they have run into in the past 6 months. And so I just want us to consider them, because I know we don't have to normally. And I want us to consider what we would do if we did have to. You show up and the client will not work with you, refuses to work with you because you're not the right ethnicity. How would you handle that?
I wouldn't want to work with them. I've been in this situation. I was meeting up with a buyer, and the buyer said to me they were of a certain religion and they did not want to work with anyone that had any German ancestry. And so I said, I'm not going to be able to work with you because I have that. And I was very happy not to work with someone like that.
Yeah. And I mean, there's going to be all different scenarios that come up, right? All different situations that happen for people. The one that you mentioned regarding the religion and the German ancestry, I'm just wondering if there was, something from World War II there, because there are still World War II survivors. There will be all kinds of different instances that come up. They may be from biases. They may be from trauma. That doesn't mean that you instilled that trauma to them, but someone who looks like you may have, and to work with you could trigger that for them. So interesting that you bring that up, because we tend to think of this as an instantly bad or negative thing, but it could be something that that person is struggling with within themselves also, which is another way to look at it. What about if the seller won't show you the home because you're not the right race, right? We knew that, I mentioned Joanne Poole had shared that story. What if that happened to you, friends? You show up and the seller says, your clients can come through, but you're going to wait outside. How would you handle that? Would you send your clients through and wait outside? What would you do?
I don't know that I would be too professional about it.
You know what? That's okay.
No, I would lose my license over this one.
Well, I want you to be a professional, don't get me wrong, but I also think that sometimes anger is appropriate. I'm just going to put that out there.
Yeah.
I do think that sometimes anger is appropriate. We have had some of our Black colleagues have gone to show homes and have had the seller come out with firearms drawn.
Oh my God. Tell me that's not in Rhode Island.
It is not in Rhode Island that I know about. But it is it was in New York, it was in New Jersey, and it was also in Washington State. So I don't know if I can be naive enough to think it hasn't happened all over.
Wow.
Just because these are the instances I've heard about it.
Scary.
It is absolutely terrifying. I'm glad that you guys are taking the time to think about these things that we don't normally even have to think about. And I appreciate you all taking the time to think about these things. I have my website listed here. And what I have on there is a tool that's free to everybody. You can go and grab it. What it is an intake sheet. And you might think, oh, big deal, an intake sheet. Forms equal freedom, and they also protect you in terms of risk management and liability. In terms of fair housing, having an intake sheet is a huge, huge piece in your arsenal because it ensures that you're asking everybody the same questions. First of all, it makes you more of a professional because you're not wondering, did I already ask them if they are qualified? Did I already ask them if anybody's moving with them? I think I did. Instead of being up here in your head wondering, you can be right here with people, even if it's right here online instead of in person. Instead of being up in your head wondering about things, because it'll all be on the paper right in front of you. No one can claim that you've asked different questions or asked more questions of one than another because you've got the form and you have a system to ensure that you don't. Sometimes people ask additional questions or other questions that aren't on a form and they don't ask them of someone else. They're not coming from a bad place, but having it systemized for yourself is a great protection and a great way to reduce your risk and your own personal liability. This picture that I have shown here, this is one of my favorite pictures from the protests this year. I love the sentiment in this board. I'm sorry, I'm late, I had a lot to learn. No matter when you're coming in, the fact that you are showing up is what is important. We've spoken so much throughout this hour and so many good nuggets that I didn't give that you all gave. Things like Pam saying, I think it's worthwhile for everyone to look into themselves and understand that we all have biases and take a critical look at yourself. When you take the time to just admit and accept that we all have biases, then when you make a mistake, because you're going to make a mistake, I'm going to keep making mistakes. The fact that I teach fair housing and I've been studying it and I am passionate about inclusion does not mean that I don't make mistakes. But when I make mistakes, what I'm getting much better at, the muscle that I've been exercising, is the humility in accepting my mistake instead of building up a wall and saying, well, that's not what I meant and I didn't mean it that way and you know me. Instead of having all of those comebacks, just taking a breath. I can see how you see it that way. I can see what you are saying. Thank you. Some of the things that I have learned the hard way, because I've made mistakes from talking with people. When I first attended college, I'm a Jersey girl, by the way, so I went to college at Rutgers. And when I first went to college, one of my roommates was half Korean, half Japanese. One day I was talking about her and I referred to her as Oriental, and she got really upset and explained to me that Oriental refers to objects and things, not people. If I had gotten upset in that moment and said, well, that's not what I meant, and you know I'm your friend, we've been friends for a year now, what about all those times I've done these things for you? Or if I had done any of that, I would have cut off my own ability to learn and grow. When we look to see what the other person did wrong, we don't get any opportunity to improve. When we look and see where we can correct our actions, where we can make changes in our speech, then we get to grow. I told you how I'm doing those interviews with all different people that have different experiences than I do. I was interviewing a friend of mine who has been putting on the Pride festivals for Flagstaff for the past 10 years. And in interviewing them, I kept referring to them as her and she. In the very beginning of our interview, they explained to me that they prefer to go by the pronouns they and them. But my brain is hardwired, and it can be changed. Those hardwires can be changed. I just have these pathways where I see a person as a singular, she or he. What I'm learning is that I need to correct that when someone has expressly told me that they identify as non-binary. They identify as two-spirited. These are all new things for me. This is not something that I am every day familiar with, and I am learning and I am growing. And my friend was so gracious with me throughout that interview and misgendering them, which is a new word, misgendering. For me, it was a new word. So gracious with my misgendering. When I did that to them, they retold a story of a time when they were at a pride festival that they were running and they had misgendered someone. And I want to talk about that because what they did in that instance by sharing that story with me was they normalized my discomfort by getting into that with me, by saying, I have been in that exact spot and understand that as well. These are all tools, these are all muscles that we can use. But it does take humility and it does take bravery. Those of you that are here today that showed up, you were brave. You entered into a fray of a discussion that we have been taught all of our lives to stay away from. And we spoke very plainly about all of these things today. That bravery needs to continue. The humility in recognizing that there's more to learn. There's more to understand, and to have a space for that is going to help you as you go forward. I don't hope that I don't make mistakes tomorrow. I just hope I make better mistakes tomorrow than the ones I'm making today. We've got about 5 minutes before we wrap it all up. Does anybody have any questions or any thoughts or things to share at this point?
I would love to say that one thing that I find so difficult is keeping up with the nomenclature, the proper way to say things. And I just heard recently that master bedroom is no longer appropriate. So that's a tough one because it's constantly changing.
Yeah, no, I completely understand. So interesting is again, referring back to the interview that I was doing with my friend who was running the Pride festivals in Flagstaff. It's LBGTQ2A. And I was asking them to explain to me what they were. And they said that they need to do some research too. Things are changing. And that's frustrating because you want to learn and then say, I know, but it's growing and it's changing. So I understand that completely. The term master bedroom is a very, very interesting discussion and one I have been involved with. I've spoken with many Black members across the country who have expressed upset about this. And this is not anything new, by the way. I got my license in 2002 and the master bedroom discussion was being had then. It's just that the Black members make up maybe 10%, or the members of color, maybe 10, maybe 15% of our membership. And we've not really been listening to that discussion, but it's not a new discussion by any means. And my understanding is that discussion was going on for decades prior to my getting my license. Wow. The idea is that that it is making people feel less than, both our members and members of our community, and that there's other words that can be used. So I know that, for example, RESO, which is the nationwide company that handles the real estate standards organization, which handles the standards for the terms that are used, that they have been listening to members and organizations of color throughout the country, and they have made a determination as well that this can be changed and have set it up so that that can be done within them. I understand the fatigue that happens when we're trying to do the right thing and we stumble over a word that we didn't know anymore, that had negative connotations. I understand the fatigue and the frustration with that. I don't want to discount it. But I do want to say that, again, going back to having an understanding that people's experiences are different than ours, if we just can understand that, just understand that there are people who have a completely different experience than we do. If we can just understand that and then have a respect for that experience, I think that'll get us pretty far.
Thank you.
And you're so welcome. Any other thoughts or comments? Questions? Well, my friends, this has been a very productive hour. I've gotten a lot of good information from all of you, and I hope that you've gotten some good information from all of you as well. We've talked about real world applications. We talked about what is happening in the real world. I loved this discussion. And if anybody wants to continue it with me or reach out to me, you can reach out to me through my website or through Facebook. I would love to stay in communication with you. I really, truly, from my heart, want to honor and thank you again for taking the time out of your business to work on this, to work on yourselves, and to help all of us, including me, get better. Thank you all so much for spending this time with us today. Thank you to your association. Thank you to Linda and Carol and your president, Mary, and everybody that's putting good things on. One thing I didn't mention, and I should, is that the gifts that Linda purchased ahead of time, those books are, they're notebooks. And one of them reads that laundry is the only thing that should be sorted by color. And the other one reads, Every Human Matters. And those are going to be gifted to Paul and Pat, who are my first brave people to speak up. Thank you so much, friends. And the money for those notebooks goes towards a charity that is helping all the communities in Chicago. So your association is amazing. And it was my absolute pleasure and privilege to be here with all of you. Thank you all so much.
Paula, thank you. Today,
Paula.
this hour was wonderful. We all came away either learning something or food for thought. And we need more of this. And it was a pleasure having you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure getting to work with you. I appreciate you so much. Hopefully I'll come out there in person and then you all have to hug me when we do that. When we do that kind of thing again.
That's right, Paula. Thanks
Very
so
timely.
much.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you, everyone, for
Thank you.
joining.
Bye. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Take care, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Linda. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.